Welcome to KZCF Live. I'm Jordan Duckins. If you don't recognize my face, I am a communications officer with the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. And this week we're continuing our conversation from our community meeting featuring Nicole Hannah-Jones, New York Times journalist and MacArthur Fellow. She spoke to our crowd about education, housing, race, and how they intersect to create inequities. So she talked about that on a very national level, then she kind of localized it at a statewide level, but we're talking today to Michelle Miller-Adams about the local view of these education disparities and issues. And so we're here at the beautiful Upjohn Institute and talking to Michelle. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Jordan?
Great.
Good.
So you're a senior researcher here at the Upjohn Institute. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and your research?
Sure. So I'm here part-time. Most of my colleagues are here full-time. I also have a teaching job at Grand Valley State University. But my research focuses on the impact of the Kalamazoo Promise on both the educational system in our community and the broader community as a whole. And we also spend a lot of time looking at other scholarship programs that are similar to the Kalamazoo Promise.
Okay. And so how is your research used to address education disparities in Kalamazoo County?
So we at the Upjohn Institute are very focused on data. We really like to look at data to figure out what's really happening, and we look at that data. We look at data as a whole, but then we always segment it and break it down by race and also by income, which is also a really important driver of educational inequality. And race and income intersect in ways that are often hard to disentangle. But so a lot of our research focuses on what impact the Kalamazoo Promise has had on how students are doing in the K through 12 school district in the Kalamazoo Public Schools, but also what happens once they go to college, and how the Kalamazoo Promise has affected the likelihood of enrolling in college, progressing through college, and completing a degree. And we want to figure out what's happening for the many classes that are already enrolled. And we also want to look at what's happening by subgroups segmented by race and by income. And I would say that the way in which this work has informed the community, my colleagues have done a lot of really rigorous, really well done studies of these impacts, is that it's helped the community identify where these persistent gaps in inequality are. So the two big challenges for the community, and they're challenges as a whole, and then they are specific challenges around race and income, are around high school graduation and around college completion. So Kalamazoo Public Schools is a high-poverty school district. It enrolls most of the non-white minorities in our region, and it also has a much, for the large school districts, it has a much higher free and reduced lunch rate, which is the way poverty is measured in the school systems. So it turns out that the Kalamazoo Promise has created incentives and the ability for students of all races and all socioeconomic groups to go to college, but there are still real gaps in who's getting to that finish line in high school, and also what happens once they go to college. So we see students going to different types of institutions, experiencing different levels of success once they get there. And we're also seeing a pretty serious stop-out issue, which is students who start higher ed and then don't continue. And low-income students are more likely to have stopped out. And not the Upjohn Institute so much, but working with our community partners, the school district, the Kalamazoo Promise, the city, there's a lot of work going on right now in identifying why students are stopping out, who's stopping out, and what resources and interventions are needed to bring them back into higher ed. And other important partners, of course, are Western Michigan University, KVCC, who receive most of these Promise students, and of course the foundation, which is really concerned about a lot of these issues as well.
Right. So that research is very important in finding solutions to break down those barriers for those students so they can graduate high school and complete college.
Right, and for us, and really for everybody, it should be, data isn't this sort of abstract thing that sits out here. The whole purpose of using data and having good data is to generate usable information that allows you to make good decisions improve your projects, improve your programs, identify where the gaps are, figure out where interventions are needed. So data helps us hold ourselves accountable as a community, but it also helps generate knowledge and solutions about how we can do better.
Great. And so why is it, in your opinion, why is it so important to address these education inequities? How does it benefit our community as a whole?
That is a great question. So we live in a community that has tremendous philanthropic resources and lots of wealth, but also a really enduring problem of poverty, particularly of child poverty, of racially drawn child poverty, of neighborhood-based segregation, and segregation in the schools. So ultimately, the single best path toward upward mobility runs through education. We want children in this community to have better jobs and earn more money than their parents did, so they're on that path from upward mobility, and they move themselves and their families out of poverty. And to do that, children need to be given a strong foundation from birth or beforehand. They need high quality early childhood education. They need appropriate interventions all along the way to get them to that high school diploma and on into higher ed. And a degree or a credential completed, that's going to get them a better job. That's going to get them a better income. That's what's going to create this upward mobility for our community and really break that cycle of generational poverty. So education's the critical piece.
For sure. So it just sounds like all the research being done here, I know there's, this is focused on education, but it's very important to where Kalamazoo is going and just breaking down those barriers or creating equity within our community.
Yes, and one of the wonderful things about being here at the Upjohn Institute, my colleagues here study labor market issues at the international, national, state, regional, local level, but the Institute has made a commitment to be a strong and trusted partner around data on local issues. So thinking about how the community can align and do a better job of serving its children, its young people, and people who experience disadvantages. Our board and our leadership has made a really strong commitment to our being a community partner and working locally as well as at these other levels of government.
It's just great. It just seems like a lot of different organizations, institutions are working together to address the issue, and so thank you for all the work that you've done on the issue of education. So we appreciate it.
You're welcome. I want to throw one more word out there which relates to something you just said. I think our alignment as a community is getting better, breaking down those silos between different organizations and sectors, but we still have a lot of work to do on that front, and it's really hard work, it's really intentional work, and I'm glad that we seem as a community to be finally making some progress around aligning in support of young people and upward mobility and breaking those cycles of poverty.
Definitely, and so just thank you for helping us continue this conversation, because it's definitely a conversation that we want to keep having, in our organization and just on a community level. So
great, thank you. I've never been on Facebook before, so it's exciting.
First time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Join us next week on KZCF Live on next Thursday.